So does anyone else think that when they go from the forest to the water, it kind of has the same vibe of when Mario goes from the Mushroom Kingdom to the Sand World in World 2? So my local theater was doing screenings in 3D of Avatar: The Way of Water, and I hadn't seen it yet, even though it came out like 3 years ago. And I decided that now would be a great time to catch it before the new one comes out. So decided might as well review it. So Avatar: The Way of Water takes place 10 years after the original film. It follows Jake and Neytiri after they've kind of both settled in on Pandora. They've now had multiple kids. They even have a foster daughter, and it kind of follows their family after the return of humanity to Pandora. Follows them sort of leaving the forest and arriving to stay with the sea people, kind of tribe of the Na'vi, essentially. And I mean, full stop. This movie's beautiful. I went and saw it in the big 3D theater that we've got, and it was something where you could always see something new on the screen. That was interesting. They definitely do a good job of creating a cohesive Pandora to where you've got a new biome, completely different from the forest, different animals, different flora, and it still feels like the same planet. And I definitely think that that's very hard. That's work of passionate people, creating a whole new kind of planet of wildlife. Because, Star Wars does it where they've got wildlife and they've got this and they've got that, but they go to so many different planets and they'll kind of focus on like one creature or one thing on each planet. Whereas Pandora is such a rich atmosphere of different animals and plants that I think it was really cool. Um, which kind of brings me to the CGI. I think the CGI in this movie is great. I am normally not a person who's huge on big CGI films, with exceptions like Pirates of the Caribbean, Transformers, stuff like that, that does it really well. Out of most of the movies I've seen over the past like 5 years, this easily has the best CGI, which is saying something because for a movie to have this much CGI and for me to enjoy it and think it looks as good as it does is a huge accomplishment. I am very much a practical effects lover, but this was awesome. So full stop. I commend everyone who worked on this movie and the CGI because it was great. Um, and the CGI was good enough that you actually are able to kind of connect with characters that are fully CGI and you get emotional depth out of them, which I think is isn't an easy thing to do. I mean, Planet of the Apes kind of did it pretty good with Caesar, but this does such a good job of keeping the expression with CGI, and it allows each character to have emotional depth. And each character, even the kids, who next generation characters aren't always the strongest, but in this case, with each of them, you're like, I know somebody like this, or I know of somebody who is like this person, and I can kind of relate to who this character is. And so I think that a lot of the relationships, a lot of the character motivations are very, very strong in this film. Even with the villains, I think the villain has a great um, motivation for wanting to go after Sully and kind of make him pay for what he did initially in the first film. Which Jake and Neytiri are, especially Neytiri, are badass in this movie. Like, full stop, Neytiri is just like putting people down with her bow. And she has a few of those moments where she almost feels like Ellen Ripley in Aliens, where she is that protective, motherly figure that is not to be messed with because you will not win. Jake is still cool in it. Jake still, does a lot of cool things, but I think as far as the action goes, especially in the last set piece, which was awesome, Neytiri just shows out in that. It makes her a really fun character to sort of follow and to kind of root for because she is just so capable. But overall, very, very strong set pieces, which is aided by the CGI and just the world building of it. And overall, definitely a lot to love about this movie. All right, well, it's been a second, and there are a couple things that I definitely think that pulled me out of the movie just a little bit. The first big one is the relationship between Jake and his middle son. And I think that they had something there where they wanted to pursue the sort of misunderstood child, who kind of acts out, and father coming to understand his kid while also son understanding that his father loves him. And that story has worked a bunch of times. There's nothing wrong with telling that particular story where the parent and the child both grow and they grow closer. The issue comes from the fact that his foster sister and his oldest brother don't have that issue with the dad. Where they get into some weird stuff. The oldest son, getting into trouble with the middle child and, doing some other things. And the foster sister saying she hears voices and, having these weird things going on. And whereas he admonishes the middle child for doing all of these crazy things, the other two children, he plays not cool dad, but just like, I understand why you did what you did, or hey, let's look into this, and is very immediately understanding. Whereas the middle child, it feels like he makes one mistake at the beginning of the movie, and then for the rest of the movie, he's just like, yeah, you can't do anything right. I don't want to understand. No, don't explain to me. What you did was wrong. And while that story works, if that's just how the dad is and that's just how the son is, but it shows us that he is not always like that with his other two children. And that really bugged me a little bit, because it's not necessarily that they're developing the character. They're just kind of like repairing a little spat that they've had, is what it feels like, instead of development. And I think that could have been done better if they just made it so that was one of his character traits that he had to improve on, is just listening to his children. That could have been a lot better. But it wasn't the worst thing in the world. The other big complaint I have about the movie is it's 3 hours long. And I'm not against long movies. I like long movies. There's a lot of long movies that I like. I don't feel that this one needed to be 3 hours. Now, because it's doing all this world building and all of this building of why is humanity here? How are the different tribes of Na'vi different? How is the wildlife different? And I think it does a lot. And it's all done well, but it just got to the point where I was like, to tell this story, we didn't need 3 hours. This could have been done in like two and a half. Could have been done in 2.5 hours. And it starts to drag a little bit. And it just was something that sitting in the theater, I kind of had it pegged where like, okay, I know where this is going. I kind of have an idea of how this is going to end. I don't know why this movie still has 45 minutes left in it. And I think that they could have, in the editing room, not lost a lot while also improved the pace of the movie. I appreciate that they're building this kind of epic saga of these movies, and that they feel like they need to use all this time to build out the world. And maybe when it's all said and done, we'll appreciate it, that they took that much time. But as of right now, the movie just drags for me a little bit. So with all that being said, I definitely had a good time with this movie, and I'm very much looking forward to Fire and Ash. I believe it's coming out later this year. Definitely will have a review out on that when it comes out. But I definitely recommend, if there's still time for you to go see it in theaters before they take it back out again, I would definitely recommend going and seeing it, just for that experience alone was something that was really, really awesome. And definitely, go support your local theaters in that. But overall, good movie. Not great, but really good. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5.